Okay. And this is the Mem Tesam Aleph. The Gemara is in the middle of the drushes about a nazir and a Kohen Gadol. And we had a machlokes between Rabbi Shlomo and Rabbi Kiva how to darshan the psukim on the top word over here. And yesterday, maybe it's still color. No, the color went off. Okay, the highlighting went off. But Rabbi Kiva said that La'avivu limo teaches you by nazir. By nazir, it says that he should not come defiled to any mace. And then it specifies his father, his mother, his brother, his sister. That's extra because once it says already mace, it means any kind of relative. So these are all going to be extra for drasha to exclude something. So lavivu limo, he said it means to say that he maybe tami to a mace mitzvah. The mother and father not, but a mace mitzvah yes. And now the Gemara is going to ask a kasha on that. Is that true? A little bit further. And then it says, La'achiv, maybe I'll highlight it as we go along also. La'avivu li'imo told us that he's not mitami to a mace mitzvah. La'achiv told us that if he's a kohen gadol and a nazir, he may be tami to, even if he has two hats, he has two reasons why he should not become tami, but it could be a tami to a mace mitzvah. And Lachosa was for something else. We went through all the psukim. So now the Gemara asks on the top of the next page, Rabbi Kiva, Mechti, Loshno Kohen Gadol Lehudei, Loshno Kohen Gadol Lehu Nazir, Nafkim Alachim, La'avivu li'imo, Lamali. So this is a tricky question. Yesterday, Avram explained it to us, and the verse says so. This was also almost to say so, that this is a tricky question because we're in the middle of Nazir, and when the Gemara says La'avivu li'imo, Lamali, it's really jumping back to Kohen Gadol. So the way the Gemara seems to explain is that once you know the pasuk that it says by Nazir, even the Kohen Gadol and Nazir also is b'tami to a mace mitzvah. So you don't need the pasuk that says by a Kohen Gadol that he can be b'tami to a mace mitzvah. Let's just think about it outside. One way we have it is that a Kohen Gadol can be b'tami to a mace mitzvah, and we have that a Nazir can be b'tami to a mace mitzvah. And then it says another pasuk over here that Kohen Gadol and a Nazir. He has two things. He happens to be a Kohen Gadol and also a Nazir. So he also could be mitami to a mace mitzvah. Even though he has two reasons not, he has two agencies, but he could be mitami to a mace mitzvah. And the Gemara is asking, you don't need the pasuk that it says by Kohen Gadol. Yesterday we didn't have this, but Avnistan explained it, that if you have a pasuk by Nazir, that he may be mitami to a Kohen Gadol, to a mace mitzvah. And then there's another pasuk that says even more than that. And the only thing we have more to add on is a Nazir and a Kohen Gadol. So by definition, that tells you that a Kohen Gadol because it says La'avivu li'imo, and then it says by Nazir. Just to go back to yesterday, it says La'avivu li'imo tells you mace mitzvah is mutter. La'achiv tells you even if it's a Kohen Gadol and a Nazir, mace mitzvah is mutter. So by Nazir alone, this says by Nazir alone. Mm-hmm. By Nazir alone, you know that a Nazir is mutter to mitami to a mace mitzvah, and even a Nazir and a Kohen Gadol because it says extra pasuk La'achiv. So don't you already know that a Kohen Gadol alone could be mitami to a mace mitzvah? If the pasuk over here says a Nazir, not even a Nazir, even Nazir and a Kohen Gadol. So now we go back to Parshas Emor, where it talks about a Kohen Gadol. Over there, it's not necessary to say that a Kohen Gadol could be mitami to a mace mitzvah because you know already the Parsha Nazir told us about the Kohen Gadol. That was your shot. That's very good. That's the Gemara's kasha. It's a little tricky that the Gemara expects us to know that we're jumping from one.
It wasn't my shot. It's the direct.
But the Rosh says it. If you see the Rosh open here, it says La'avivu li'imo the Kohen Gadol Lamali. Here's that word. La'avivu li'imo the Kohen Gadol Lamali. That's so. The Gemara expects us to jump on to the words, even as to say that La'avivu li'imo. It says right here we're Nazir. To figure out that's not what the Gemara says. One pasuk, La'avivu li'imo by Nazir says that to a Kohen, to a mace mitzvah, yes. And Chiv tells you even a Nazir and Gadol. So now it says in Parshas Emor that says that the Kohen Gadol become tummy to a mace mitzvah is not necessary. That's so much kash on these first few lines. The Drashmi Krasman is saying that there's no difference if he's the Kohen Gadol alone or a Gadol and a Nazir. You don't have to know the word La'achiv. So La'avivu li'imo that it says by Kohen Gadol in Parshas Emor Lamali. There's a much kash. Others learn a little different, but this is a very flowing pshat. The Gemara answers tricky. It is necessary to say La'avivu li'imo. And now the Gemara is going to go back to the real Pashup pshat. You don't have to have all the drushes before. the pasuk talks about that he's allowed to become tummy. He's not allowed to be tummy. We're in the drasha world. We're like and about Meis Mitzvah. That's all the drasha. But the pasuk shot. Just back to the pasuk shot. This could be in the Chumash class that it says that a Kohen Gadol may not become tummy to relatives, even to his father and mother. And the Gemara is going to find the necessity to say both of them. If it says one of them won't be able to know the other one, if it says he can't become tummy to his father, don't you know he can't become tummy to his mother? If it says he can't become tummy to his mother, don't you know he can't become tummy to his father? Why is it necessary to say both of them in the pshat level? We don't have to be so fancy to go to the drash. The drash talks about Beis Mitzvah's mutter. That's not the Gemara. The Gemara is going to say that it's necessary to say both of them for the pshat level. Tzrichi. It's necessary to say both the father and the mother. Because of Aviv, have a main hainu time with the low mitami lay, Mishum the chazaka ba'amu, aval imo, the yad and the lidate, litamila. The mother has something over the father, that the mother was sure that she's the mother because she gave birth. We know that she's the mother. The father, we could assume, surely we could assume that he's the father because he's the husband, but it's not, it's a chazaka. It's a chazaka that we assume that the mother has relations with her husband and she doesn't go out of marriage, but it's not as sure as the mother who actually physically gave birth. We know that this is the mother. So you might think that the only reason why he's not mitami to his father is because it's not 100%. It's only a chazaka. Of course, it's a big chazaka. But then the woman also, it more says this even when it's his own, even if the woman is not so loyal, but mostly she's with her husband also. But the regular woman, of course, we say the chazaka, kashrus and everything, she's not going to be mizana. But it's still not as sure as the woman who gave birth. We stay in the hospital, she gave birth. So if it would say that a father cannot be mitame, the nazir, the Kohen Gadol cannot be mitame to his father, I might say, but a mother, yes. And the opposite also.
Father cannot.
The Kohen Gadol cannot be mitame to his father. Would I be able to know from there also that he cannot be mitame to his mother who dies? Maybe not. Maybe the mother's closer. Closer means that she's definitely a mother. The father's not definitely the father.
If
the Kohen Gadol's father died.
If she's closer.
What does closer mean? Not closer, more definite. If the pasuk would say that the Kohen Gadol may not be mitame to his father who died, would I be able to learn from?
Because it's such a close relationship.
We're not talking about. We're not talking about besides. Even though he's so close, even though the father is so close, he may not. Would I be able to learn from there also that the mother he may not?
I thought it's a kal v'chomer.
What's kal v'chomer? The father's closer.
He has a chazaka, and you can't tell me for him, but she, for sure, we know. Then all the more so.
No, that's not logical. You want to do it again?
No. So why is it not?
No. Say it again. See if it's logical. Say it again. It won't come out.
It won't come out?
No. Go ahead.
It comes out for him.
Try it again. If the father
who's not so
sure that it's his father.
Oh, I see. You go the other way. You have to say anybody who's less related, all the more so they would not the tummy for them.
No.
Because it's not like she's so important.
Not important. She's so
sure that you wouldn't tell me.
Right. Not to say mother also. Let us just say mother. Let us say mother. It could be that your difficulty was you were still in the Meis Mitzvah arena. We're in the Pashup Shad arena. Now the other way. Let us say mother.
In the other way is the mother.
Even though it's definitely the mother, he may not become tummy to his mother. So is it not kal v'chomer that he not be?
Yeah. Oh. Is it not a kal v'chomer that he can't? No, we're saying he can't tell me to his mother.
Right.
So all the more so somebody less.
Right. So why does it have to say both?
Oh, so now only say mother.
Right. And now it continues because Imo, it would have said that the Kohen Gadol cannot be mitami to his mother. Because the yichus, all the halachas of lineage don't go with the mother. Of course, if he's Jewish and now does go with the mother. But as far as everything else, the Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, all these things go together, go with the father. The lineage always goes with the father. Yerusha, all these things, the lineage goes with the father. So you might think that the mother he cannot be mitame because he's not mityaches after her. That the father's family is considered through the father. The family lineage is considered through the father. You might think that the father is considered more related, that he can't be mitame not to the mother and not to the father. That's why the pasuk had to say both of them. The question was, why does it have to say father and mother? The answer is for the pasuk shad, not for the drash about Meis Mitzvah, for the pasuk shad.
Can you replay the mother? If we only had mother,
so you'd say that the mother the Kohen Gadol may not become tummy to his mother because his yichus is not following his mother. His yichus is following his father. As far as, let's say, a Kohen Levi, his mother's
You
a
might
Kohen.
think that the father you could,
Right,
because of yichus.
right. So the first way
Even though
goes,
he's further away,
not further, even though he's less definite.
even though he's less definite, but the yichus goes after
Right,
him.
right. And the other way, if you say the father, you say, but the mother is more definite than the father.
But if we need both.
If we need both.
Other than.
Right. And the Gemara happens to be talking about this, the Rishon speak out. The Gemara happens to be talking about the pasuk in Kohen Gadol. The same question about father and mother that it says by Nazir is also going to be the same terrace. The Gemara also used them as one drasha, whatever the drasha was by Nazir. And the same thing, a Nazir cannot become tummy to his father, a Nazir cannot be tummy to his mother. What do you need both psukim for? For this reason, because the father is more yichus and the mother is more definite. End of that Gemara.
Okay, but now that we need them both for the shot, then that doesn't have, the drush doesn't matter.
So that the first one talk about in order to make the Gzera Shava, and we made a Gzera Shava with these words also. Imo, that only that the Saras and Ziva not. So it's
Even though
necessary.
needed, sometimes
Right,
you do.
right. And that's called mufna. That means that when you make a Gzera Shava, when you make the Gzera Shava link, it's stronger when it's not an extra word. When it's called mufna. Mufna means like it's vacant. It's not necessary for anything. Then it's a strong panoi, right? Then it's a strong Gzera Shava. And some hold that is a Gzera Shava from one side, even if two sides of the link. The Gzera Shava link has two sides. Here we're going to have Kohen Gadol and Nazir. So sometimes it's enough to have one of them is panoi. That's good enough.
Yeah.
If it's going to be both of them panoi, it's even stronger. And they bring in this point here what the Bekiva and Rabbi Shmuel might hold about this issue about being mufna or not. But not Gemara saying that it's not mufna. You have to have both Abba and Imo for the Pashup
They're
Shah.
not, in this case, it's
They're
not.
not mufna, right? The Gemara continues. It says in the pasuk, "Val kol nafshos meis lo yavo." So again, this pasuk is easy to know that it's a pasuk by the Kohen because it doesn't say this pasuk. Lav volimo, it does say by both of them, but this word, the way it's quoted over here, "Al kol nafshos meis lo yavo," that's a pasuk it says by the Kohen Gadol over there in Amor. By the Nazir it says "Val nefesh meis lo yavo." Al nefesh meis lo yavo. But this pasuk is by Kohen Gadol, and the question is normally, what do you have to learn from all these pasukim? So the Mefarshim explained that it's going on Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva, he learned from Nefesh Meis that it means even relatives already. Rabbi Shmuel said you have to, Nefesh Meis would have meant distant, to the people that are not relatives. But it has to tell you also the father in order to tell even a relative. But Rabbi Kiva said yesterday that Nafshos Meis already meant even relatives. So why do you have to have, and then the Gemara went through all the other drushes about Aviv, Imo, Lachav, Lachosa. But here the Gemara wants to know that he says that the word Meis, that yesterday by Noz he said nefesh meis means two things. The Gemara wants to know also what is it Rabbi Kiva going to dash with this pasuk of alcohol nafshos meis lo yavo. And the Gemara tells you the drushes over here. And we're on Beis now, and it says alcohol, and then it says meis, then it says nafshos. Really, it says nafshos before meis. Alcohol, nafshos, meis. So the Gemara is going to dash all these psukim off him. Alcohol, lafuki rechokim. This pasuk tells us that he's not allowed to come tamei to people that are not relatives, non-relatives. And then it says mace, lafuke krovim, to tell you that even relatives are not allowed to become tamei to. We're talking about the Kohen Gadol. And nafshos, why does it say nafshos? Would have been enough to say I'll call mace lo yavo. Nafshos mace, lafuke revi is dam shiasa mishnei mesim shemetami ba'oel shenemra I'll call nafshos mace lo yavo. It was the question about a revi is dam that is metami ba'oel, that blood that came out of a dead man after he died, obviously. So the blood of the mace is metami ba'oel only if it's a revius. And the question is, what if it came out of revius down from two dead? You don't have one from one dead man. Together, you have a revius that came out of two. One revius together from two mason. Is that also tamei? So this pasuk is going to say yes, because it says nafshos. Nafshos is plural. So to say even from two mason, also the revius down is going to become tamei. So the one found the drasha for the word nafshos, even though we would know everything already without it. As far as our drasha, we would have said, I'll call mace lo yavo. We would have known all that already. But it says the word nafshos to tell you that even from two mason, the blood also is going to become a tamei, which is a machlokes tanam. This is the shita Rabbi Kiva. There's a question over here that this word alcohol chokim is very difficult because yesterday the Gemara spoke about, or 2 days, I forgot if it was yesterday, 2 days ago, that you don't need a pasuk by to say that he's not coming to. That's not a chiddush. A Kohen Gadol is not any less than a Kohen Hedyot, and a regular Kohen is not allowed to become tummy to. That says openly, he can't become tummy to non-relatives. The chiddush of the Kohen Gadol is even relatives, but here it says you have to have a pasuk for that. So it tells you that's the kasha, and whatever the answer is, we'll just leave it at Yesh more, but then you keep it. Gabi can go with crowd. They were chokin. They became the Homer from a coin head. So, Tosfos says a terrorist, but just to point out that that question should be asked. That you don't need a pasuk to tell you that a kohen gadol is not allowed to become tamei to non-relatives. That's surely less than the kohen head.
What was the term?
What Tosfos there says, I don't understand it, but maybe it's not complicated, but I don't understand how it ends.
Okay.
Okay, the next Mishnah. Now we're going into a new sugya, a new cruise, starting a new leg journey. It goes into the dinim of Tumah, that the nose is not allowed. This is like a new subject for Gamma. We didn't talk about it too much.
But it's about nazir.
It's about nazir. Yeah, this is not. Yeah, it's not a cruise. Yeah, sometimes I say cruise when we're going on a different subject. This is right. This is a new leg of the journey.
A new leg.
And one more question: does the nefesh of a goy is included in oil?
So that's the machlok. Is a famous machlok of Shimon and Rabbanan. Is a goy mitami ba'oil. When a coin passes by the cemetery of goyim, and there's a tree over the cemetery and over the side, is that what? On a ground. It's a big tree, and there's a goyish
They
cemetery.
used to have it here, right? At Sharyafo. They cut that tree.
So that's the machlokas of Shimon and Rabbanan. Reb Shimon says Adam, the goy is not called Adam. I think after who all want.
But we're
That's the machlokas. We're machmir. One of my machmir lachan tamei oil from a goy. Interesting what you brought it up, but I wrote down that yesterday we had a question about animal. What does it say? The nazir is nazir.
nefesh, we said it all.
So it says if we said nefesh, then we would maybe we thought of animals. It says
Yeah.
nefesh meis, and then someone else said you don't need that because it says lo yavo. That's tumas ohel. So only something which has tumas ohel, and an animal doesn't have tumas ohel. So I wrote down in my notes. I don't know where I got from. That you could say that the nachminu between the two drushes is an usher to become the ohel to a not tame ohel tame to a goy is a nazir also to become tame to a goy. If the drush is from nefesh meis, that means a human being. An animal is not called a nefesh meis, but a human being is, and a human being is also a goy, so he's not allowed to become defiled to a goy. But if the drush is from lo yavo, only a kind of tumah that has tumas ohel. And if you hold that a goy doesn't have tumas ohel, so then there's no risk for unless they become tummy to a goy, even if he touches him, because that's not.
Because the lashon there kiyavo. What does it say?
That's where you learn how tumas ohel. After tumas ohel, the animal tumas ohel, and a vela. But a guy also doesn't maybe. So if a guy doesn't, so then he's not in the parsha of nazir. The nazir is allowed to come touch a dead guy, according to that.
And there's no tumor that exudes in an ohel.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that. If there's no tumor that exudes in an oil, so that's fine. He's not. But even he's allowed to touch him also, because the same he's not allowed to touch that animal. He becomes
I'm just
tummy.
thinking about like a hospital in Woodforest.
Right. So that's going to be the machlokas. If a guy's with tummy bone,
If they're only worried about dead Jews, or
right,
dead
that going also. But that animal surely doesn't have tumas ohel, and there's no except for going to become to an animal also to another. That is a machmir that a coin should not go by a tree where
he also should not go into a hospital.
because it's almost so that same reason that they shouldn't go to a place where they are dead going. Not known. People don't.
No, I don't know.
What do they call him doing?
How do they go to the hospital?
I know Westbrook told me he's not to go up on drone.
On that side of the street. It's the hospital. Going him not going to hospital.
On the side of where the park is.
Yeah.
That
The
whole
park is a cemetery. The whole corner is a cemetery. Now we're Mishnah, the new leg of the journey about the tumos that a nazir loses his nazirus. It's called Megaleach, means he has to start all over again. That he like it says in the pasuk. Yes, it says Al Nefesh Meis Lo Yavo. The nazir is not allowed to become defiled to the dead. Now it's going to say that there are going to be some
for nazir, what is
Al Nefesh Meis Lo Yavo.
Well, that, I thought you just said that was the Kohen Gadol.
Welcome back.
The pasuk that the pasuk in Kohen Gadol, but you want to know what the pasuk is by nazir. So the pasuk is by nazir.
It's the
I'm
same
not sure.
words.
No, I'm nefesh. Not.
Oh, nafshos, I
Midbar
see.
6.
Oh.
6.
Where's-
So if it says only a kind that has tumas oil, so the guy doesn't have tumas oil, should even be allowed to touch him. That's very interesting.
Okay.
I don't know if it's true, but it seems.
In this
so.
one, it mentions 4. In the next place.
Right.
Father, mother.
Right. So now it says, "Elu matumas anazir megaleh." And the following kinds of tumas mace, the nazir stops his tumah. It cancels his tumah. He has to start all over again. He's not allowed to, and if he did, he has to start over again. And now it's going to be a list. The first one is alam mace. If he had now all these, that's the point that he's all going to be tumas ohel. It's going to say that it's going to end off al magan. Maybe I should also. Yeah, might as well put it
And
also.
when we say
highlight this
megalech,
also.
that's going to mean start all over.
Right, that means that he has to start all over again.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's the way to say it. On the following tumas, the nazir is going to start all over again, and he's not allowed to. He's not allowed to come to. And if he does, he has to start all over again. And the mission is going to end off, and 2, 3, in the third wide line for touching him, carrying, or even being in the same. And here it goes. The first one is, if you number it, Allah is the first one.
Mhm.
Allah mace, any contact with the dead corpse. If he touches him, carries him, is in the same mohel. Kazayis ben mace, not only a whole mace, even a kazayis, even a size of an olive of the flesh of a dead man. Kazayis basar ben mace, that's kazayis very little, the size of an olive. Also, that's enough that has all these kind of tumas to touch him, to carry it, or to be in the same ohel. The third one, kazayis not so. Also, kazayis, the size of an olive cell, is going to be the liquid that exudes from a dead corpse. And I tried to look for the word that it's in English and I can't pronounce it. So but let's leave it like that. It's a long word about 15 letters. So how to say it. It's like a ladle of some sort. It's a big spoon of rokov. Rokov is the disintegrated matter of the mace of the dead man when he disintegrates. So putrefies. Maybe putrefy would mean the liquid, that might be the nutso. But rokov is and there's not going to be a kazais. Once it's already rotted and it became rokov, it became the rot. So then it's not tummy if it's a kazais, only if it's a malod tarvad, only if it's a spoonful. Spoonful meaning a ladleful.
The
Whatever that spoon
tarvat is the what?
is a ladle.
Is the
I'm
ladle?
saying a ladle because it's some kind of big spoon. It's not big. Maybe it's smaller than a ladle, or maybe it's a small ladle, whatever it was called, a ladle of those days. But it's a kind of a ladle. And that amount is going to be mitame, the nazir, both by touching it or carrying it or being in the same oil. The next one is Citrin. Now we're going to the bones, and we're going to see there's even a small bone that's tummy if he touches it. But in order to tummy by ohel, there's only going to be significant bones. One is the shedra. The shedra is going to be the spine. Golgolus is the skull. And the next one is called an Avrohom. So those are so far only the only thing about bones, the shedra and the golgolus. Those are chashav significant bones. And otherwise, the regular bone, it seems that it won't be tamei ba'ohel. And so far, I wouldn't say that the nazir is not allowed to have contact with it.
Aver means any limb.
Aver means a limb. That's the next subject. And a limb, the Gemara says someplace that it has to have basar gidim atzamos. It has to have 3 things to be considered an aver, a limb. It has to have flesh and veins, sinews, if they call it, and bone. And it talks in the Mishnah and all this, what's considered an Aver. It says there are 248 Avrohom in a man. So, Aver min Ames or Aver min Achai. No difference if the limb came off of a dead man or the limb came off of a live man, if they amputated it, whatever. So also it has Tumah. Tumah's Ohel even, Margamas and Ohel. But here, Sheyesh Allah b'Sabasa Karoi. They say the word Allah should be Alehem, and because it's going on both, it's not only going on Aver min Achai, it's only going on Aver min Ames. That the Aver is only going to be this Tumah only if it has some flesh on it. Karoi. Karoi means the appropriate amount. What is that? Doesn't say over here. But the Gemara is, yes.
You just said it going on both of them, and then you said it's only on the mace. Is it?
No, I didn't mean to. If I said that, I made a mistake.
It's whether it's
also
the
on
Aver from
Aver
the
min
mace or
Ames.
Aver.
To them have to have also.
Yeah.
If you put a comma over here, I put commas, but I didn't put a comma after the word mace because then it would sound like Aver min Ames regardless. And Aver min Achai, Sheyesh Allah. The word Allah seems to be a mistake. It says the word Alehem, but Allah means singular. Alehem is plural. Is Alehem. Tosis also. So, and they say the Ksav Yad that has the gear, so it's better to have Alehem. So both an Aver min Ames or Aver min Achai, either one of them, they have Tumas Ohel, and the nose is not allowed to become Tameh, but provided that they have Basar Karoi, they have enough meat on it, enough flesh. How much is enough flesh? It doesn't say. And the Gemara says someplace else that has to be enough that if a person would be alive, it would heal. The basar would be enough that it'd be able to heal, and you have to. I guess if there's a certain, it's lacking that amount of a certain amount, and that's not going to rejuvenate. It's not going to.
Was a Kazais of us.
You're talking about Kazais ben Abasa, that was before. Kazais ben Ames was here in the last narrow line. Kazais ben Ames we had already. We're not talking about that. We're talking about that it's something less than a Kazais of Basar. If you have Kazais ben Abasa, that alone is Tumas Oil. So we're talking about that there has to be some Basar. Then it's not, and this Aver is could be a very small Aver. It could be like the one part of the pinky.
Right.
That's very little, even a small child also. And how much basar is considered karoi? That if it would be living, it would rejuvenate the missing flesh. So that's considered basar karoi. The next one is chatzi kavat samo. So we spoke about bones. So far we just spoke about the spine and the skull. How about other bones? So here it says that has to be a significant amount of bones. It has to be a chatzi kav. A chatzi kav.
For bones.
Of bones. So a kav is the volume of 24 eggs. So this will be like the volume of 12 eggs of bones. So then it's also going to be mitame ba'oel and the nazir zaser. A very significant point is to know that tumas oel doesn't have to have a chatzi kav. To the tumas oel, it'll be a rova kav. Even what we say. The volume of 6 eggs, a quarter of a kav, is enough to have tumas oil. But there's a halach l'moshe b'sinai that in order for the nazir to be yosser to become tamei to him and to be megaleach is only if it's a chatzi kav, double. And instead of a quarter of a kav, it's a half a kav. And the same chiddush have in the next word, chatzi log dam. How much blood?
Kav is 12.
Kav is a kav is the volume of 24 eggs.
24. The chetzi is 12.
Probably also on anything. Well, it's just not like
What is that?
Probably also anything.
Could be.
Anything. Probably.
Could be.
Probably. No.
I don't know. Yeah, it says I don't. So far I just started. So here it says megaleach. Could be. It could be. I'm not. I hear the tzad. I'm not sure. I'm listening to saying that even though this is saying he's not megaleach on less than this, it doesn't mean he's allowed to. But maybe he's not allowed to come time even for less than this. But we'll see. I hope we'll see as we go on. There's going to be a couple of daf now. These sugyas. And the chatzi log dam is the last one on this list so far. And again, it's a chiddush because as far as tumas mace, even the revias down. We had on the top of the page today, a few lines ago, we said revias down. After we even said a chiddush, even if it's from 2 mason, but a revias down is usually enough to be mitami boel. A revias is the same size as a kiddush cup, whatever your kiddush cup is supposed to be.
And
A revias.
is that also by eggs? What's the volume?
The volume of eggs will be a lug is 6 eggs, and a revias, a quarter of that is an egg and a half. An egg and a half is but here I'm sorry, that's a revias. Right, here'll be 3. A chatzi lug, the lug is 6 eggs, and a chatzi lug is 3 eggs. So if there's blood of a dead man, maybe even dead men, that together is going to be a chatzi lug, so then the nazir is megaleach. Just to point out again that this is a chiddush because for regular tumas ohel, it's enough to have a revias lug of dam. And here for these last 2 things are chidushim, the chatzi kav and the chatzi lug. Chatzi kavat samos and the chatzi lug dam is chidushin that dafka banaz Allah chol Moshe Sinai, that even though tumas oil would be by a quarter of a kav of bones and a quarter of a revius of blood, But the nazir is not going to be megaleach only if it's a half a cup of bones and a half a little
It's
bit.
kind of a cooler, we call
Yeah.
it a cooler,
Yeah.
it gives more leeway.
Right. All this that we
I
spoke
thought it
about,
was going the other way. But
and all this is just to sum it up. Everything we spoke about, the Mishnah ends off. The vav is a mistake over here. If you have, some don't have a vav, but if you have a vav, take it out. Al magon, va'al mason, va'al hilan. Everything we spoke about till now is if it's going to be magon, masa, or ohel. The vav doesn't make sense over here, so take it out. Al magon, al mason, va'al hilan. Both of you had contact with all this.
touching and carrying and what? And that all.
And ohel, right. The next category is going to be things that are only.
Yeah, but why is he bringing this down? So now we're talking about quantities, and now what's he adding?
Tell me what?
First we said it's about the covering, how much flesh, how much bone,
How much? Yeah, that's only a question of quantity. But how about what about it? What kind of contact did you have with it?
So all three.
All three. Magon,
three.
mason, or hilan. Once you have this amount, there's no difference if you touched it, carried it, or were in the same ohel.
Thank you.
I say ohel, it means you're in the same ohel, or you're a mahil over it, it's mile over you. There's all kinds of ohels. It doesn't have to be dafka that you're in the same roof. It could be that you're roofing over
You're
it.
roofing over
Or
it,
it's
or
roofing
it's
over
roofing
you.
over
That's
you.
also called ohel. And now the next one is not going to be Thomas ohel. Etzem kisora. That's a bone, not a spine or a skull, and not a half a cup of bones. A bone the size of a barley corn, very little. But that's only if he touched it or carried it. Amagol b'amasol. Then it's going to be tamei and megaleach if he touches it or carries it, but not if he's in the same oil. There's no tumas oil on etzem kisora. There's only tumas oil on a rova kavat samos, and here it's only going to be a chatzi kavat samos if he touched it or anything. But if he oil, but to touch it, even a bone the size of a barley corn also become tamei and is going to be aleach. And that's started over.
Is this machmir than all other teams made?
No, it's more cooler. That it's only if you no oil. This doesn't have oil. A bone doesn't have oil until it has a roba cow, and the doesn't have until it has a chatzi cow. Very much. And now we're saying as far as touching it or carrying it, it's even if it's the size of a barley.
Which is a kuman, no? Because it's tiny.
Okay, say it like that. But it's only if he touches it. There's no oil on this. Means before we said a shedder of golas, that's only because you want to be in the same oil, should be telling the same oil. But to touch it, even if it's not a shedder of golas, not a chatzikah, even a small thing is going to be tummy if you touched it.
Yeah. That's we're learning that touching and carrying are much
More chomer than oil. Means it's easier to be us to become tummy, but you have more contact.
Yeah.
There's more contact with man and masa than there is with oil.
Yeah.
So no, if you have too much oil, it's only if it's something more significant.
More significant.
And now the Mishnah is not a new Mishnah, but it's summing up what's going to be the halacha when it becomes tamei. He's megaleach. What does that include?
The procedure.
Yeah, aleido anazir megaleach u'mazav shlishi u'b'shvi v'sosir esakodmin ve'ino maskelim nosel la'ad she'itoher u'maybe es korban nosel. If these things happen, the nazir is going to shave his head and get sprinkled on the third and seventh day of his tumah in order to get out of the tumas mace, and he cancels all of the days that he counted already, has to start again. The order happens to be the difference. The order is going to be first he does the azar shlishi u'shvi, then he's megaleach, and then he starts again. Okay, but the Mishnah says that's called megaleach, which means he has to get out of the tumah. So he has to have sprinkled from the paraduma ashes water on the third and seventh day of his tumah. He loses all the days that he counted again, and he starts again. From which he start counting, or maybe it's korban nosel. So the Gersa says in our Mishnah, I put in parentheses because we'll see in a second. But the way it says it is that he doesn't start his new count only after he became Torah, which means on the seventh day, and he brought the Karbanis on the eighth day. The process is that he brings on the seventh day, he's Megaleach, and then on the eighth day, he brings the Karbanis. So here it says that he can't start counting until he brings the Karbanis. The new count is only on the eighth day after what the Karbanis. And we had a machlokas about this a long time ago that I forgot, but they told it that it's going to be on 18. A long time ago, instead of machlokas, if he starts counting on the seventh day or on the eighth day, and our Mishnah, the way it's quoted over here, it says only after the Karbanis on the eighth day. And they take gears over here, these words maybe as because the Gemara has a question about it. It seems that the Gemara didn't have this in the Mishnah. Here's the Tosfos over here. The Loga Sinan, the Mishnah, the Yovi Korban Nosel, because the Gemara talks about it. And the Gemara has such a question. Wouldn't have had a question if it's open Mishnah. So you take out these three words. Take out the words of maybe Korban Nosel. But it happens to be lalacha. It is going to be true. We pass like the shita that he doesn't start counting until the 8th day after the korban chatas. So the Gerus is the Gemara didn't have it because the Gemara asked a question about it. So these last 3 words didn't be goals.
Very good. So the statement is going on everything.
Everything.
The
Whenever
whole Mishnah.
is megaleh. First, it tells you which kind of tumah and what kind of contact, how much and what kind of contact. And then it said, in a case that we said that the nazir is megaleh, it means that he has to get out of the tumah by getting sprinkled on the 3rd and 7th day. Of course, he has to go to the mikvah also. Is here, and he brings korban, and he starts counting again. Okay. After Meir died, so after Meir died, says Talmid a new Rebbe. So Abuda didn't want to Rebbe. He told his Talmid, don't let them meet Talmid and Rebbe our yeshiva. He didn't want them yeshiva. That Nei Shekan running him below Lilmo Torah because they are the word counter, that they were opposing and they were more interested in asking kasha learning Torah. That's what Rebbe had a criticism of the Talmidim of Rav Meir. They were too to ask questions, and he didn't want those kind of Talmidim.
To ask questions or to catch something wrong?
It could be. I had a Rebbe, a Randall Kaplan, to United States. He was teaching on certain yeshiva, and the boys used to look up to my show. Asking them ourselves, gosh, is this over here?
This is the word
Contrarun.
like contrary.
I think Rabbi Miller is from the word contrary.
Contrary is from this. Counter.
To counter. Came to counter. Came to a counter. Right? No. What you think is maybe
No, so I thought like the trunk is showing he's wrong. Could
be. So you're saying that they weren't interested in the question. They had questions. Is okay. So
The challenge is good. I think.
But the question you're challenging, the point will be what your purpose in challenging is. If the purpose, that's what you're saying, that the purpose of challenging has to be l'shem shamayim. But I don't know what to say. Here it says, they're not coming really to learn, to counter. That's what you're saying. It could be a person gonna, but he's not. He's coming to learn Torah.
I understand.
Yeah. So, here it says, the word lakapcheni, I don't have a, kapcheni usually means off, to chop off. Rashi says it means they want to win over me. They want to stump the Rebbe, kind of. So he didn't want. Now we see right away what they're very kedoshim with Torim. I didn't somehow.
I'm sorry, what's the chaf?
Zachak, he pushed in.
Who did?
Simchas. That's his name. Simchas is his name.
Yeah.
Zachak, Simchas v'nichnas. Simchas pushed in and he got in. I don't know, he got in. Amulahem, Kach Shanali Rebbe. Now, where Simchas was saying over a Mishnah that he heard from his Rebbe Rav Meir, who died already. Rav Meir, Kach Shanali Rav Meir told me our Mishnah. He was looking at our Mishnah. So he said, over the Mishnah, the way we have it. Aleilu Tumas Anazim Agaleach, Ala Meis, Al Kzais Ben Ameis. Mamish word for word, what we have. Aleilu Tumas Anazim Agaleach, Ala Meis, Al Kzais Ben Ameis.
Yehuda said the Mishnah the way he learned it, and Simcha said no, but my Rebbe said this.
Yeah, could be. That's called it. That's not asking a kasha. He's not saying that I have a different gersa. But you see, Yehuda only was angry. I see right away because it didn't make sense. Rav Meir's gersa. So I'm not sure why it's called the countering. Yeah, Rav Yehuda didn't have Rav Yehuda in our Mishnah. Let's put it on. Rav Yehuda didn't have alam meis. Didn't have the words alam meis. Rav Yehuda had aleilu tumas anazim agalech al kzais meis. But Simchas came and said Rav Meir's gersa was alam meis al kzais meis on the dead and on even Olive's volume of meis. And Rav Yehuda didn't like that. So Simchas really just said over Rav Meir's gersa in the Mishnah was gersa. Aleilu tumas anazim agalech al meis. But the Rebbe got angry because Rav Yehuda v'amar lahem lo kach amarti lechem. Didn't I tell you? Told to his own students. Didn't I tell you? You can't say to neither Rav Meir lekan Rav Meir shekan to run in hand. That this doesn't make sense what he said. Al Kazais ben Ames Megalech Al Ames Lo Kolshkein. It doesn't make sense to have the gears Al Ames. I don't know what it has to do with countering, but he said that his gears doesn't make sense because if it says Kazais ben Ames, that's a much bigger chiddush than Ames. First he says Ames, a dead corpse. And then he says even the Kazais of a dead corpse. So once he said Kazais ben Ames, there's no chiddush in the word Al Ames. He shouldn't have said the word Al Ames. The Pasuk shot in the Mishnah's class, he would say Al Ames, and even Kazais ben Ames. That's the way it wants to tell you. Not a whole mace, even Kazais. But he didn't like that. He does say Kazais ben Ames, and you know that it means that I saw a mace is 1,000 Kazaisim. So there's no purpose to say the word mace. So there was a mayor died. David was the Rebbe, and he didn't want to tell me them about men. He was angry about the way they quoted it.
He was on some.
Yeah, that's what happened over here. Rav Yossi. Rav Yossi. Yomu Meir Shachar Yehuda Koas Yossi Shasa. Tama Teila. They're going to say, people are going to say, Meir died. Rav Yehuda is angry, and now if I'm going to be quiet, so then I mean, have to step in over here to make seder. Like Makom Sheinish, Shtadali Osish. The matzav is not good.
Right.
That the Talmidim of Rav Meir are going to be dismissed, and what's going to be? Rav Meir
So
died.
what did
Yehuda
he
is
say?
angry, and if Yossi himself is going to be quiet,
They're gonna say Mayor died.
they'll say Meir died. Now, of course, we say Rav Meir, but Rav Yossi is from his colleagues. So he says Meir Yehuda Yossi. So Rav Meir died. The Yehuda is angry, and Rav Yossi is quiet. So what's going to be with the Torah? Torah Matei. What's going to be with the Torah? So therefore, Rav Yossi stepped in and he said, "I'll tell you pshat in the Mishnah that Rav Meir said." I'm Rav Yossi. He's going to find a case that the mace is not going to be a kazayas. How do you do that? How could you have a mace not to be a kazayas? A kazayas is the size of an olive. So how could you have a mace that's not the size of an olive? That it's a mace, but it has no mace without any flesh. The flesh was removed, however that happened. There's no flesh at all. I guess we'd call it a skeleton, whatever.
Mhm.
And that's the reason why it says a mace, even though it's not, even though we know already kazayis basa, kazayis of flesh we know, but it's not tell you a chiddush that an entire mace is also going to
Even with
has
no.
no flesh, no flesh. What's the
So
kasha?
you might
You
say
assume
it's
that it means
You
a
might
regular
say
mace. So okay, that has much flesh. Even a kazayis, say a whole mace with a lot of flesh, even a kazayis, that's true. But there's such thing as a mace that doesn't have any flesh, or and still that a mace is metam, even though it has no flesh.
No, this
So
is
you
just the-
Jacob was asked Shedra,
Shedra.
Chaim David is Chatzi Kav of bones.
What
Nice.
are we asking? Why did we not say? Okay.
Say why say mace if you know Kazayis when I mace but say don't mace even a Shedra or a Gogolas or a Chatzi Kav of bones. So answer the question there.
Rabbi Yossi's just trying to
He wants to find a case of a mace that's not a Kazayis boss of a mace.
make Rabbi Yehuda,
To make a mayor make sense.
To help
to make Rabbi
and
Meir
help
Okay,
make sense, or to make
or-
Rabbi be
Okay,
angry.
good. But Peter's still going to be angry. But
Ah,
he still doesn't. Yomar, Rav Yizach, Al Kula Lo Kolchkin. So he doesn't ask the question that you asked about the bones. He asked about the Aver. It says, "No, say Manachai Ben Ames." That that's Basar Karoi. That is also that even mace. The whole mace includes Avarim. He has 248 Avarim. Even one Aver alone is enough to be Megaleach to reduce in the zeros. Not only a whole mace. Even every mace. Just like I said before, every mace has a kazayas. They got rid of that. It has no basa, but still let it be considered an Aver. And an Aver could become Tameh. And even one Aver, not only a whole mace.
Right.
Aver is also, of course, has to have basa or paroi. More understand that it could have answered that there's no. More could have answered there's no basa. The Mishnah says Aver menachai, even a mace only if it has rejuvenate. I'm assuming that there is enough basa. It's hard to come up with an answer at all. So the more finds an answer. Someplace else, he had the kasha similar. There he said it's talking about a neighbor miscarriage, a small, tiny embryo. Thank you. That he doesn't yet have gidin. That means gidin means sinews. They usually translate it as sinews, and the Aver, even the Mishnah didn't tell us all the details, but in order to be considered an Aver, it has to have Basar, Gidim, Batzamos. It has to have an Aver is comprised of 3 parts. It has to have Basar, some flesh, and Gidim, sinew, some sinews, and bone. That constitutes an Aver. If it's missing one of these things, it's not an Aver. So he's saying that it's talking about an Aver, but doesn't that have Gidim? So mitzad the din of Aver, it's not called an Aver. But since it's a mace, since it's an entire mace, it's enough, and doesn't have a kazayis basar either. That's the part I was saying. It doesn't have a kazayis basar, even has some basar, but it's not enough to be considered an Aver because it doesn't have Gidim. Rabbi Yochanan wasn't talking about us; he's talking about different Mishnah, and therefore we say we can say the same thing in our Mishnah also. That here's a case of a mace that's not going to be tamei because of kazayis basar, doesn't have kazayis basar. It's not going to be tamei because of an Aver because it doesn't have Gidim. So I'll tell you a case where it's necessary to say mace. Rav Amar, we didn't really answer, I think, Levi Yaakov and Chaim Tav's question yet, that this still has a shed of a Gulgolas, Hatzikav. I was going to take care of that question also. Rav Amar, so the Mishnah listed already before, and the Mishnah did list certain bones that are come tamei. So this nafel over here also doesn't have, that would have made it tamei. So you must, this nafel does golus, which I don't know what the case is. Doesn't have shedul golus, and it doesn't have the skull and the spine, and also it doesn't have a bone. And also he says something wrong with all that is the Mishnah says it. The Mishnah means, what do you want to say? That he's coming to tell you a mace that shedul that the Mishnah says. The Mishnah says but there's one thing the Mishnah doesn't say. It says that's going to be included in the mace. When it says mace, what is mace coming to tell you? Even the ice person, it wants to tell you it has most of the structure of most of the skeleton, or most of the number of bones, even if it's not most in quantity, but it's most of the number. There are 248. So if you have 125, that's called road minion, and therefore it's no. There's also Tumas Oil for that also. There's Tumas Oil for that also. There's a new thing we didn't have in the Mishnah. In other words, if you want to put it, go back to the Mishnah, it has this whole list of things that have Tumas Oil. There's one thing missing that it says in the Mishnah Nolas. Besides Kazais V'Nameis, Kazais Notzel, Malot Habit Brokov, Shedr Golas, all these things, Aver, Chatzi Kavat Somos, Chatzi Lugdam. There's also Rov Binyano or Rov Binyano of the skeleton. If it has most of the skeleton in quantity, or in the number of bones that make up the skeleton, which is 125, because 248 is the whole skeleton. So 125 is considered rogue. That all, and even if it's not going to be a chatzikav, it's a very small, it's a snakefull, it's a small embryo. If it has those things, it's also tomei ba'ohel. So what did the word mace come to include more than we don't know yet? This case, robinyano. If it has most of the skeleton or most of the number of bones of the body,
Even though it's less than
even though it's not, there's no basar, doesn't have all the other things also. It's not called an aver, it's not called baksai, supposed to be a mace. If it has this much bone, that's going to be either rob binyan or rob minyan. It's also the tamei ba'oel, and the nazir is going to be megalech if he comes in contact, even ba'oel. If that's good, we go further. It says in the Mishnah about kazais natzo. Al kazais meis al kazais nas. What's natzo? Reizo natzo. So I said that it means the liquid that that exuded from the body, which I don't know what it's called in English. And the Gemara asks, what is it? What's natzo? So it says basar meisha korash or moel sherotiach. That's the answer. Two cases that's called netzel. One is the flesh of the corpse that congealed. So they say, what does mean congeal? That is first liquefied, and then it congealed. So it says here that liquefied flesh is also coming, but it said that it congealed. That's interesting. I think I was going to ask right away, even if it didn't congeal, what's the difference if it congealed or not? He's saying that the liquefied flesh is considered netzel. So why tell me that it congealed?
The word's called cum.
What?
C-U-M. Is such a word? C-U-M. The ooze. Huh?
I saw a word and
Some combination.
yeah, I was looking for the English word. There was some fancy word that I don't know what it is. Okay. We could type it in the Google and know what's going to tell us. So what's the liquid that exudes from a dead body? So
What's
one is,
mohel?
and mohel means liquid also. Sheretiach. Sheretiach means that it's foamed.
What's mohel?
Mohel is liquid.
Liquid.
Also, it's similar. It seems to be similar to the liquid, the liquefied. The Gemara is going to say right away that these things are really liquefied flesh in the process of deterioration of disintegrating. So the dead corpse becomes liquefied, and it says here that it could either congeal or also that it could be martiach, which the word martiach doesn't mean boil. Martiach means to ferment, like foam, get foams. And the Gemara has a kasha on both of these things. It only talks about one, talks about the first one, and Tosfos says it refers to the second one also. What's the case you have to talk about that it congealed? What's the difference if it congealed or not? If you're not sure that it's from him, means you don't know it's from you don't know that it's the flesh that deformed. Kikarish Mahavi means over there also, besides this fancy word for the liquefied flesh, there are other kind of liquids that come from a dead, and it's going to be all the liquids like his saliva and everything that's in the nasal passage that comes out, but that's not the meat, that's not the flesh that putrefied and became liquid. It's liquids anyway. That's not tummy mace. It has to be the flesh that disintegrated and became liquid. So the one is asking, do you know what it is or not? This thing that you have in front of you, do you know what it is or not? If you know that we don't know that it's from the flesh. Maybe it's from what the Gemara is going to call some chicho. It's from his phlegm or other emissions that the body gives out. That's not the flesh. So then, what's the difference if it's congealed? What's the difference if it's congealed? It still might be phlegm. That's not tumas mace. If you do know that it's the flesh, what's the difference if it congealed? Even if it didn't congeal, I forgot the low karash. It means the Gemara understands that liquefied flesh, that's what's tamei. But you keep on telling me that it congealed or it was martiach, it foamed. What's the difference? If you know that it's a liquefied flesh, it's tamei even in the liquid state. And if you don't know, it might be phlegm and other things. What's the difference if it congealed or not? So the Gemara says, "I'm Rabbi Yemi, you understand? You're right. If you know the two definite sides, either it is or it's not, then it doesn't make a difference if it congealed. If it's not a liquefied flesh, then it's not tamei. And if it is a liquefied flesh, it is tamei. But the case is, it's telling you some scientific facts. It's saying that you don't know because the whole mace is disintegrating and you don't know what it is. Is this the phlegm or is it the flesh? And the Gemara is telling you should know. The Gemara in the Kasha thought that the phlegm also would congeal. He says, no, it doesn't congeal. This is only a scientific test to be able to tell what it is. That if it congeals, then it's the flesh, because flesh, when it liquefies, it congeals again. After it liquefies, it congeals. But the phlegm and other kind of things that in the nasal passage that liquefy, it's not going to congeal. So this is a test to be able to know what it is. A kid said, what does nesel mean? Nesel means the liquefied meat, the liquefied flesh. That's what it means. And if you're not sure, you can make a test by seeing if it congeals. If it congeals or foams, that's a simon, that's what it is. Otherwise, you could assume that it's just the other emissions that the body gave out and it's not the flesh. A little further, if we can go to the bottom of the page, this is nothing to do with us. This is parentheses. We put this in parentheses. It just came in because of Nesel. It has nothing to do with nazir, as we'll see in a second. He asked the following question. Yesh Nesel red. Okay, leave it red. Yesh Nesel Behema or a Nesel Behema. That's his question. A behema don't do it in nazir. Nazir doesn't have any issue to become tummy to a dead corpse of an animal. But we're talking about tumas nevela. There's such thing as tumas nevela. Nothing to do with a nazir. So if the meat, the nevela means the dead meat of a dog, whatever, of a cow. If it wasn't shechted properly, it's a nevela. So if it putrefies, if it liquefies, is that still called nevela? Nothing to do with us. That's we talk about netzel by tumas mace. So we're talking about netzel by tumas nevela. A dead animal that liquefied, the meat that liquefied, is it still called basar? That was the question. Maybe this Allah Moshe Messina that Netzel is also Tumas Meis only by a man, by a human, not by a veil of an animal. Or there's no difference. The same way it's talking about Tumas Meis, also Tumas Nevela, the same thing, that the meat, the liquefied meat of that animal is also considered meat. Tumah says, there's a question of what till when is something considered still nevela? How fitting for consumption does it have to be? There's a machlokes. I'm saying it in short. The Gemara must use different words. The Gemara talks, does it have to be fitting for human consumption, or even fitting for a dog consumption, the animal consumption? Of course, dogs eat things that humans don't. So if you have a piece of meat that got spoiled to the level that it's not fit for human consumption anymore, some say that it's not called a veil anymore.
That's,
And when?
I was thinking animal. We
Okay.
have to go.
Okay,
Something else.
yeah.
I'm inside
So,
my.
yeah, okay. So there's machlokes. Nishlam mechilas adam or nishlam mechilas keler. When is it called not food anymore? Only when it's not roy for people, even if it's not roy for people, or only when it's not roy for animals either. It's machlokes. So the Gemara says this question you're asking, if you hold that it has to be fit for human consumption, this thing is not fit for human consumption. This netzel, once the meat is going to liquefy, it's not going to become fit for human consumption. It's not a question even. Surely it's not considered a veil. But if you hold that as long as it's fit for animal consumption, it's still considered an avela, then we could talk, because the animals would eat this stuff.
They
So that's
would
what
eat
they would
this,
eat this netzel. They would eat this liquefied flesh. So do you say, what does it want to say? How does it go? So it says in the pasuk over there, how does it go? And it says there's something about a killer over there. What does it say? Is there a pasuk over there? How do you know Caleb over there? I don't remember. Okay, I don't know. What is that? Okay, so that's the question. So Tumah Chamura means Nevela. Tumah Kala means other kinds of Tumas that less than Nevela, like regular Tumas Ochlim, that Tumah touches food, it becomes Tameh. So we could put this in parentheses. Also, that's not our subject about Tumah Kala, if we want to, just to show that it's not our subject so much. The Tumah Kala Ad Lager is not our subject, Ad Lager is not our subject. Everybody holds up.
The word lager.
Lager means that is the Tumah Chamura is considered an avela only as long as it's roy for a person. But we doesn't want to ger. Lager the reason why it says ger has to do with the drush in the pasuk. That Lager shebesherecha titnena. Here's the pasuk. Places brings down. Kiduchsiv. Here's the pasuk. Lager shebesherecha titnena v'achala. Here's the I just highlighted it. That sherecha titnena v'achala. Give it to the ger in your city and let him eat it.
And there it means a non-Jew, or what does it mean?
Yes, but the point is just say that it's human. It's human. So the Adrash is going to say that it has to be fitting for human consumption in order to be considered an avela. A royal lager is called an avela. If it's not royal lager, it's not. So if you hold, it gets what the Gemara is saying. In short, the Gemara is saying that if you hold that it has to be royal for human consumption, shopper, then there's no question, because it's not fitting for human consumption. That is considered an avela as long as it's royal for a dog to eat it. So then, what do you say about that? Not a kasha, just a she'ela. What is the halacha? If you have animal, nevela, that turned into netzel, is it still considered basa? It's this roy lebehema. If you have to have roy lodam, it's not roy lodam, nothing to talk about. But if you say that as long as it's considered for animal consumption, it's still considered food, and nevela, is it or not? Tashma de Rabbi Zeraya, it says in Chulba or Tameh, the Chama Tor. It's talking about nevela meat, and it says if he dissolved it. The way to say dissolved, that's not the way to say like render fat. That you take the meat, the fat, and you can cook it up in the fire, that it should become liquid. So over there it says that's considered still nevela. But if you left it in the sun until it became dissolved or liquefied, tohor, it's not considered nevela. And the Gemara thinks that it's the same level as this nesal that we're talking about. Putting it in the sun, and that's how it liquefied, would be the same thing as if it naturally liquefied. And the Gemara understands that when you did it in fire, that's the regular way to do it. That's considered meat. That the Gemara has no problem with. But if you put it in the sun and it slowly putrefied and became liquid, the Gemara thinks it's the same as netzel. And if it says here that it's Torah, it must be because there is no netzel of behema. If you have netzel of behema, then it should be also tamei if you put it in the sun. according to the opinion that says that it's roy for a dog, it should become nevela. So why it's still nevela? Why is this not nevela? Afilu b'chamanami, it should be considered nevela. The Gemara answers, "Emes mamachile basad asrach b'chama chivin asrach hevelan efer." That when do they put it in the sun? They only do that after it gets spoiled, or the sun, or putting it into the sun spoils it, and then it becomes liquid. So then it's already spoiled, and that's not spoiled. It means it's not even roy for the dog, even at that stage. So then, even if later on it did become roy for the dog, that's going to be ready. It's not available anymore. But our case of netzel would be a case where it was always roy lebehema, and the Gemara still leaves it as a question. It could be that's finished. I don't know what we're doing now, but as far as the question, was all in parentheses, came in because of netzel. That we talk about netzel by a human being, that is considered tumas meis. The one wanted to know netzel lebehema. The Gemara thought if you hold it has to be roy for human consumption, it's surely not a question. If roy lebehema is good enough, roy lekelev, it's a question. The Gemara thought it had a raya that is not considered nevela, and the Gemara pushed away the raya, so we don't know. Okay, yes, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll be back in a minute or two with what's today, Wednesday.
Nice to see you back.